good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to TIRA's first webinar. TIRA, also known as the International Relocation Associates, was founded over 40 years ago by Beverly Mayhew. TIRA is an aligned member organization of over 50 offices in 500 locations worldwide and includes membership of the world's leading global mobility companies. Today, we're going to talk about and learn how service providers are addressing change and uncertainty and are supporting the new global workforce. I'm delighted to be here with Brenda Levis today and co-hosting today's webinar on behalf of TIRA. We'd like to start first by introducing our esteemed speakers. Lena, can we start with you, please?
Sure. My name is Lena. I am the founder of Immersion, which is in Sweden. We have been TIRA members since 1998, which is quite some time. The company was founded in 95. We mostly do immigration and relocation inbound to Sweden, but we also send people out. So we have great use for our partners, our TIRA partners around the world, and I see several here that we collaborate with weekly. So that's nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. And Marie.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Susan. Delighted to be on this webinar. My name is Marie O'Neill. I'm based in Dubai in the UAE. I'm co-owner of EER. We offer DSP, immigration and corporate services across the Middle East. Delighted to say that we've just established operations in Saudi Arabia. We've been members of TIRA for the last 8 years. And as Lena said, we communicate and work with many of the partners I see on the call here today. And delighted to be part of the organization and on this first webinar for TIRA. So thank you, Susan.
Oh, absolutely. Delighted you're here. And Alan Bell.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alan Bell. I'm a senior vice president at Equus Software. So a little bit different. We are on the technology side of the service provider industry. We provide technology for both corporate clients and also for third parties. You may have heard of us through Assignment Pro, which many organizations use. I'm based in Maine in the US and delighted to be here with you all today.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us, Alan. Now over to my co-host and colleague, Brenda Levis.
Hi, my name is Brenda Levis. I'm the president of NYC Navigator. We're a relocation destination services company based in Manhattan. And I want to thank the speakers for being with us today and everyone who's taken time out of your busy schedules to join us. And we're delighted to present the future of global mobility to you. Thank you, Susan.
Thanks, Brenda. I'm Susan Ginsberg. I am the founder of SRG Advisory. I help businesses around the world grow their business and build their brand. And I'm delighted to be today's moderator and to be a consultant to TIRA. So let's get started. How is the economy impacting global mobility? And what specific sectors in your market has been impacted? We'll start with you, Marie.
Thank you, Susan. And an interesting question. And I suppose I'm very lucky to be based in Dubai in the UAE because our economy is booming here. We're not seeing any signs of a recession that other people are seeing in other parts of the world. The last 12 to 18 months has been a very busy time relocating for both corporates and private clients moving to Dubai. So I suppose a few things, since COVID, Dubai, handled COVID very well, and the rest of the world saw that it was an attractive location to move to. So we have a lot of private clients from lifestyle perspectives wanting to move here. And also with our corporates, we're seeing that a lot of our corporates are actually hosting some of their employees for other offices that want to work in the UAE remotely. So they'll come under the remote or the nomad working visa or hosted as an employee in the Dubai office, but working for another office around the world. So, we're seeing a lot of that. And last year was the first year in my 13 years in the business, we saw the least amount of departures ever. We had a handful of departures. So we saw a mass amount of people moving to Dubai, but very little departures. And I think, you know, the situation in the rest of the world, and particularly Europe, and the current crisis happening there, a lot of people are seeing the Middle East and Dubai as very attractive. And especially now with the opening up of Saudi Arabia as well, and a lot of positive changes in that part of the world. So definitely, you know, the economy, I suppose one small effect we have had in the tech sector, we have seen a few layoffs, but nothing like what's happening in the rest of the world. So overall, very positive. You know, relocation coming in here from private clients and from corporates bringing in employees into the region, particularly Dubai, is very positive. The numbers are up, and we're not seeing any change. You know, we're seeing an increase in business as opposed to a decrease after COVID.
Thank you for that, Marie. And it really sounds like the silver lining over the last couple of years with the pandemic, your region has really reaped the benefits and has become a very attractive destination location. So thank you for that. Over to you, Lena.
Thanks, Susan. Also in Sweden, we are doing very well from a relocation perspective. And the overriding goal for the country and for companies is to attract and retain talent. And Sweden has huge skills gaps, which our European neighbors also have skills gaps. So we have to do things to be attractive to talent that could come and live here. So, and this skills gap is evident in almost every sector due to an aging population. And we need to digitalize both our government authorities and the local companies. And there's a lack of matching of skills and actual needs. And while reskilling is definitely on the country of Sweden's agenda, that's not a short-term, medium, long-term plan. So the importation of talent is still huge. So Sweden has a lot of green companies, and the northern part of Sweden, which is sparsely populated, that's where they are building huge factories for the green companies, the new energy types, new sources of energy like wind turbines, batteries, green steel. And these big factories are being built, but there actually no one lives up there. So all these construction workers need to go there, electricians, lots of different skills are needed for both fairly short-term projects, but also for long-term. It takes a while to build all this. But then, of course, when people have when business is starting up there, we will need teachers, we will need cleaners, coffee shop owners, restaurants, nurses, every other profession that makes the infrastructure work in a society will actually be needed. So people are talking about 100,000 people. And which is also pretty interesting is that we have the number that has been reiterated for the past 5 years, that by 2024, which is around the corner now, 70,000 techies are needed, software developers. And so they're in high demand. It's not likely to go down, which is really quite interesting. And like you point out, Marie, we haven't seen huge layoffs, but we have seen some. And the silver lining with the layoffs that started actually early 2022, so that was before the war and before the big layoffs in Silicon Valley, has actually given smaller players with smaller pockets, smaller recruitment teams, the possibility to hire people that are already here. And especially in 2022, when the Swedish Migration Agency collapsed completely, happened around the 1st of June, when they have new laws and no people to take care of it. Things are slowly getting better, but we will talk about remote work a little bit later. And you know, from that perspective, that's an important thing. So things are looking very good. All the Q1 numbers have come in, and we are definitely on par with 2022. That was a record year.
Excellent.
So we think the future is pretty bright still.
Well,
What-
it's really excellent. I love the picture that you're painting, Lena, is very positive, future forward thinking, and it's great to hear about the focus on the green economy and taking a really strategic look on how to build up the country, attract talent, and retain talent, not only for the good for the country, but good for the world. So thank you for that. That was excellent. Over to
Thank
you,
you.
Alan.
Thanks, Susan. I guess here in the US, it's a big market, and at a macro level, we've definitely got a cost of living crisis. But what's interesting is, unemployment rates are still historically low over here. And I think we're going to see this trickle down effect that's happening in various sectors start to play out. Both Lena and Marie alluded to the tech layoffs. There's been huge numbers of tech layoffs over here. And that's definitely going to reduce the number of relocations into certain areas. And, if I look at where those layoffs are really hitting, I've seen hundreds of recruiters just laid off in the past few months. And that's got to have an impact on that sector. But there's other sectors that are booming. Financial services are moving more people than I've ever seen before. And there's certainly other areas here where I would say the mix of what global mobility teams are having to deal with is different. So rather than the traditional long-term assignment, a lot more of the one-way permanent relocations, domestic transfers are up in the US, but also having to deal with more short-term assignments, business travel, remote workers. So the overall impact of what's going on in the economy is really impacting how people are having to deal with different types of moves, what's being asked of global mobility in terms of the workload, basically being asked to do more with less, or at least the same number of people, but having to take on more responsibility, different types of moves. The pressure on global mobility teams is definitely up. And I would say what's interesting as well is there's a lot of movement in global mobility teams themselves, seeing a lot of churn at the corporate level, people moving roles, changing roles, more so than I've seen in the last few years. So it's quite an interesting economic environment over here in the US. I think that's going to start to trickle out through the rest of the world. Normally we lead the way in certain areas, and then there's this lag that happens where the rest of the world gets impacted. So it's still busy, which is a good thing, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the next 6 to 9 months.
Thank you, Alan, for that. And I think, as we all know, we lived through this. Change is the only constant. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
well, so well said. And thank you all. So we'll move on to the next question. Is that we've all learned as businesses that it's the importance of being more proactive than reactive. And the workplace, as we know, has been completely redefined. So how has remote and hybrid work, in your view, changed the face of relocation? And do you envision that companies will continue to invest in relocation? And as Lena, you so importantly said, to attract and move and retain their talent. And the last part of this question is, as service providers, how is your organization addressing this change? We'll start with you, Lena.
Thank you, Susan. I think remote work has been wonderful. And I think what we learned during the pandemic was that people do well with remote work. It's really taking a holistic view of people that we haven't been used to, and it's been different in different countries, and it depends on where you live and how far you have to travel, etc. But I think many companies realized that this worked perfectly well. And it's now expected by talent to be allowed to work remotely. And you can work remotely in your own town, you can work remotely in your own country, but you can also work remotely internationally. both going in and out of your location. With dual career couples, for instance, when one person gets an opportunity in a different country, then the other person doesn't have to be a trailing spouse giving up a career. It's very easy and usually possible to be allowed to work remotely for the job you had at home. So I think that's a very positive thing. Hybrid work is obviously a different kind of animal where you have to report to work a few days a week. We see that in some countries, some companies, that they want to sort of foster the culture. You create team spirit, etc. And for many people, you need that physical presence and to be together physically. But I think from a holistic point of view, I mean, there are many studies where you see that people actually, they get up later, the time that you need to travel to work is spent, perhaps sleeping. And there's been a huge deficit of sleep, which is very, very dangerous and it's not good for health. So for health reasons, this has been very positive. And also a better work-life balance. It's good for the climate. We all know that we shouldn't use our car very much, so there are the green point as well. That is really good, I think. And then remote work also can be excellent for business purposes. And I will reiterate probably a few times that the Swedish Migration Agency has been very, very slow in the past year. And it's been crucial for Swedish companies to be able to get people started in their home countries before they can get their work permit and actually come and report to work in Sweden. So it has opened up a situation that has been absolutely necessary and really positive. So you don't have to sit for an unknown period of time, wait for a work permit and not have a salary and perhaps not even a place to live because you gave notice thinking that you would be in Sweden much sooner. I think that some projects where you don't necessarily need to move people, you can have an on-site, off-site sort of hybrid model, and people can actually travel in every so often and work on a project and then go back home. So we see that the Postal Workers Directive, there are a lot more people doing that now. Again, I think in the Swedish case, it's probably because of the migration agency delays. It's just too uncertain when somebody will be able to get here. What we see from our point of view is that we work closer with our clients. We are experts on a much broader base. We do business consulting regarding compliance, permit options, business visas, benchmarking. What do other people do? What I would say is that the tax piece is still probably the biggest hurdle for real remote work. And we also hear that the clients that come to Sweden on short notice and short visits, that has been very good for business and projects. And the whole idea obviously is to ship a product faster. We work with a lot of tech companies. So I would say those are the things that we think about. And then as always, I think we're all the TIRA members are entrepreneurs, which means that innovation has always been a huge part of what we do. We have to be agile, we have to be flexible, and we have to think about what's best for our clients. And whether we are in a recession or in a boom, doesn't really matter because we still have to be that way. We still have to meet our clients' expectations. So we've done a lot of remote home searches and things like that has been good for our clients because they save time.
So, and thank you for that, Alina. Lena, as you so well said, you at Immersion and all TIRA members really understand and live by flexibility, being solutions finders, innovating, and this is even before the pandemic, is really to listen very carefully to the needs of our clients and our customers and develop, I'll say, bold programs and flexible programs to meet their needs. So thank you for that. Now over to you, Alan.
Thanks, Susan. I kind of view remote work like a pendulum, and I'm not sure that the pendulum has actually found its middle point yet. You know, when the pandemic happened, the pendulum swung all the way to one end, where suddenly everyone was having to deal with remote work, and we all pivoted very flexibly, very agilely to how do we support our clients with remote work opportunities and remote home visits, etc. And as Lena pointed out, there's enormous benefits from, that come with remote working. What I also see, though, is that the pendulum is swinging back the other way, particularly over here in the US. I was reading some stats earlier on today from Manpower in the UK that said, before the pandemic, 4% of jobs were posted as being truly remote. And that shot up to 17% during the pandemic. It's now back down to 13%, and it's expected to get back down to probably where I think it's going to end up, probably around 8 to 10%, probably in the next year or so. And I think, where we're finding right now is this tension between what employees want and the benefits that Lena was talking about in terms of lifestyle, commuting, the working arrangements, with what employers want. And employers, I think, are realizing that there are some disadvantages to remote work, fully remote work. They are seeing that there are benefits to having people in the office, for teams collaborating. And again, there's certain industries, right? Financial services, they've been back in the office for a long time. They're almost fully back in. Tech is interesting. They went fully remote, but some of them are demanding people come back in. And actually, the recent round of layoffs has laid off an awful lot of remote workers. So that's a big red flag for anyone who's fully remote, in terms of your participation and your visibility in the workforce and how you're seen within that corporate organization. I think where the pendulum is going to end up is that we're going to end up with a lot of hybrid work, where people are going to be in the office 2 to 3 days, and then they'll be able to work from home maybe a couple of days. But there will still be that need to be within commuting distance of the office and being a visible participant in the corporate environment. What does that mean? I think we're still going to have relocations. I don't think relocations are going to go away. I think we're going to have a similar number, maybe a tiny drop. I think that flexibility is going to remain key. So you may be remote for a month rather than permanently remote. So I think that the future for hybrid work is very positive, and we'll get to that balance. I think remote work's going to come back and drop a bit. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next few months, in particular, as the economy changes, to see, are employers going to use economic downturns as an excuse to change the nature of working arrangements again for their people.
Thank you for that. And it's great to hear the perspectives of each of our 3 esteemed speakers, and each with a slightly different view. And it all comes down to transformation and listening, and balancing, as all 3 of you said, the needs of the clients and the end user of our services. So
Yeah.
Moving on to, you all touched on digitization to some degree. So moving on to, as we peek into the future, and as we're beginning to live in the future has now become our present, is how is your organization balancing the trend of digitization with high touch support? Oh, you know what? Let's go over to you, Marie. I realize I didn't call on you for that to answer that second question. So I get excited talking about digitization. So please excuse me. Over to you, Marie.
No problem, Susan, and thank you. And really interesting listening to Lena first and then Alan. And I'm quite glad Alan actually came after Lena before I speak, because I'm more to talk about some of the negatives of remote work. So I think Alan has kind of put a little bit of a swing on both sides. So Lena was one extreme, maybe I'm the other extreme. So I think, look, it depends. We changed to remote work, and we had to, obviously, when COVID happened, and it worked very well. But from a long-term solution, I don't think it has long-term benefits. And I very much think it's based on, as well, the region you're working in and where your clients are. So, I'm based in the Middle East. We're all about relationships, meeting clients, meeting face to face, being on the ground. That's very important. And very much here in the Middle East, we went back to 100% or hybrid working very fast, very quickly. It was about 6 weeks remote working, and then we went back to the office. We as a company, we're a hybrid model of 4 days in the office, 1 day working from home. I strongly believe as well, yes, remote working is great and it works for some people, it works for some companies. It depends what the company is, it depends on the individual as well. I personally don't like remote working. I'm in the office every day. I enjoy the drive to work. I enjoy the social interaction with people. And I think, long term for employees, that social interaction is very important. Your whole culture of your company, you get that by being in an office, by being around the leadership of your company, being around your colleagues. So I think that's very important. And, I'm not saying that I'm fully against remote work, and the Middle East, we don't have remote work. We do have, it's more of the hybrid model. And I think, as Alan said, it is that hybrid model where you have, 1 or 2 days working from home. That's what really works and is the future. And it's been interesting here in this region as well. And Dubai very much, has seen itself as you handle COVID well. People are moving here for a lifestyle perspective. So a lot of our corporates, employees are moving here, working remotely for other locations around the world, but they'll go into their local office. So they're hired on a remote package or a remote nomad visa, but they'll still go into their local office maybe 1 or 2 days a week to have that interaction. So I think, it's a very topical conversation. And yes, I'm veering more towards being in the office interaction. People are more productive, but it depends on the company. It depends on the services, depends on the region as well. The region we're in, especially with Saudi opening up, Saudi Arabia is completely relationship driven. You have to be meeting people on the ground, meeting them face to face. So I think compared to Europe and the US, it's a different working environment. So I think there are various factors involved, and it's a conversation you could speak about for hours and hours, and different points of view, but that's kind of my spin on it. So I think we went from one extreme to a little bit of balance in the middle, and then to another extreme with our 3 panelists here today.
Excellent. And all 3 of you have provided an excellent perspective. And again, those perspectives may transform over time. And this is an opportunity for our participants on the call to really go back and reflect on their organization, the needs of their team, the needs of their client. And I think all of you said so brilliantly, the importance of recognizing that this is not a hard and fast rule. That again, there's a tremendous degree of flexibility as it relates to how to best operate your company, how to provide your products and services, and how to address the needs of your clients. So now we'll move on to the last question. How is your organization balancing the acceleration of digitization with the important trend of high touch support? We'll start with you, Alan.
Well, I work for a tech company, so it's all about digitization. It's interesting, I spend a lot of time out with my clients and we look at how technology can benefit organizations. But there is still a huge emphasis within the industry on the overall employee experience. So finding the balance between digitization and those so-called moments that matter with the employee experience is really important. And one of the benefits of digitization is to eliminate manual processes that take time, to free up more time for you to spend in a dialogue with the individual that you're actually serving. And I think that's what organizations are really looking for, right? They recognize that there's certain individuals that want to have a very high touch service. And, I hate to say it because it's betraying my age, but maybe it's a generational thing as well, where more senior levels or older people still like the personal touch, whereas more junior levels within the organization want to do it all self-service through an iPad, because that's how they interact. That's how they want their service to be. So there's definitely not one size that fits all in this space. But it's about definitely looking for ways in which one can improve the service through digitization. And I think that the high touch support is one concept that comes out in terms of, I want to hold your hand through the process. I want to be there for you. But I think it's also about personalization. So a more personalized support. And that doesn't necessarily mean that a personalized support model has to be through a living person, through speaking to someone on the phone. It's about having a guided experience through whatever technology tools that you may be using. I use the analogy when I was applying for the mortgage on my house. I went to my bank and I had this very cool interactive sort of virtual assistant who walked me through every step and every piece of paper, and there's a lot of paper, that I needed to supply for my mortgage. But it felt as though it was unique to me. It felt personalized. I knew where I was in the process, and it still felt as though it was high touch, even although I wasn't dealing with a living person. I had a living person at the end of the phone if I really needed them. And I think that's what we need to look for in the mobility space as well, is how do I deliver a personalized experience that is a combination of high touch, human touch, and high touch technology touch to really get there.
And so I'll just ask you a quick question before we move on to
Sure.
Marie Allen. Could you reflect for a moment on the emergence of AI and relocation?
AI, yeah, it's this is an interesting space. There's obviously it's in the news a lot at the moment with the launch of ChatGPT, and what are the possibilities that AI could bring. And I think that there's a lot of hype on one end about the benefits of AI, and I think there's a lot of hysteria on the other end around the pitfalls of AI. I think in our space, we are still very new to this. And I think that AI will initially start in the numbers space. And what do I mean by that? So in the numbers space, I mean being able to look at things like cost estimates and help predict some of those. I think it will then go on to start to look at some manual processes that could be eliminated. I think that there's some other areas where it could be helpful in terms of delivering a more personalized package for individuals. But I think it's still very young, and I think that there's still work to be done in terms of really figuring out how are we going to use this in the best way for the relocation world.
Thank you for sharing your views. So as we're kind of peeking into the future, appreciate your point of view. So now over to you, Marie.
Thank you, Susan. First on the AI, I think our industry needs to get technology right before we can work on the AI part. But, I very much what I would, I suppose, second a lot of what Ellen said there, and it was very interesting listening to Ellen. Again, it's the hybrid model with technology. Our industry, especially as a DSP, it very much is that personal approach, that face-to-face conversations with the assignees, but it's getting technology to work with that, getting that good user interface with the personalized approach. And also, you know, in the world we're in now, people want things to be easy. They want them to be short. They want them to be quick. They want videos. They want, if you're using technology, it has to be pretty punchy for people to use it. And, you know, we recently had a relocation consultant day, and, you know, our consultants were saying that assignees weren't using our software, and they just said they had too many pieces of software and apps they were using in their whole relocation. And they were like, we just want to talk to you and we want to use WhatsApp. And, you know, it was interesting what Alan was saying there as well about, say, the older generation, which I'm definitely part of as well. You know, we want to talk to people, we want face to face. The younger generation, the Gen Z, they want the apps, they want the technology. But in my opinion, that generation actually need more hand holding than anyone else. And yes, they want the technology, they want the apps, but things tend to go wrong quite a lot with that generation as well. And I'll be quite controversial here by saying there seems to be a lack of common sense in that generation at times too. And, you know, I think they have always had everything done for them and they want someone to hold their hand. So maybe I'm pushing the boundaries a bit by saying this, but from our experience, you know, that's what we're seeing, that as a DSP, people want us to hold their hand. They want to see us face to face. They want to talk to us. So, you know, I'm not saying technology isn't important. Yes, it is. But I would say as a company, us as well, I'll be very honest in saying and putting my hand up, you know, we've had a 10-year journey dealing with technology, and we've had different systems. We're very happy with, we use 2 systems at the moment, one for the front end with the assignees and one back end for our company. We're still developing those. We're still working on those. And, you know, it's a journey. I don't ever think we'll get it perfect. We keep working on this journey to make it better. And, you know, as the world changes, technology changes, as AI starts coming in, you know, things are changing so fast, it's hard to keep up. And I think you'll never get it right. You know, you just have to keep working at it and chipping away at it. And you know, I'd say to a DSP that's got it right and feel like they really have the right technology and that hybrid model, please reach out to me, because I'd love to talk to them, because I don't know if anyone has it 100% right yet, but I'd love to speak to them if they have. But that's my opinion on it all anyway.
Well, I think your view is not only refreshing, and from what I'm hearing, you're not alone. So I think it's a great point of view. It's one that's pragmatic, and that's one that's also recognizing that there's an evolution here when it comes to the use of technology. And there's no rule that says that it has to be 50-50 or 80-20. And so you know, the fact that you are kind of riding that journey with you and your team, Marie, is smart and it's practical. Over to you, Lena. Thank you.
Thanks. It was really interesting to hear the two of you, because I agree with both. We use digital and technology for the administrative pieces. And just like you mentioned, Marie, I think that humans want human connection. So what we use technology for is time zones. You're not always in the same time zones as your clients, which means you have to use other means of communication. And I saw you, Steve, asking there, when will we get rid of emails? I don't see that happening anytime soon. I'm sorry. I wish I would, but and when people are in transition, going from one place to another, you're leaving everything and everyone that you know. You're really very vulnerable, and sending them to a chat bot, or I just don't think that's a good idea. They really need to talk to people. They want a human connection. And I think that technology can never take that role. So humans want humans, not apps, not our website. We have tried to, believe me, we have made hundreds of films. We have had the most comprehensive behind password customer pages you can imagine. It doesn't matter, they want to talk to us. They want us to show them. And that's really what we're here for, to make it a smooth arrival and a welcoming things so they can go to work, be up and running quickly. And that's the role of companies like ours. And then, like you said, we have the back end relocation technology that we use all the time. So we too have both the sort of the front window and the back window.
That's excellent. Excellent, Lena. And like you said, we've all been in the global mobility business for many years and in some cases decades. This is stressful. Moving, relocating is stressful, no matter what generational segment you are, wherever you're relocating from and to. And I believe you've all been the common theme through what all of you said is the importance of striking that balance and listening to your clients, listening to the end user of your services. We have a bunch of really interesting questions coming in, so I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Brenda Levis.
Thank you, Susan. Actually, I'm not seeing enough questions coming in, so feel free to put your questions out there, but I have some questions, starting with Lena. Lena, you've been a longtime advocate for wellness services for transferees, and you've done so much great work in that area. How are you finding the demands or expectations of Gen Z shifting or altering your service offerings?
Well, I think you have to sort of integrate that because it's just part of what you are doing. And I read a really interesting report this morning from Deloitte that said that about the Gen Zs, that 70% will consider a job based on what is healthier. So, you know, I don't know if it means long travel. Now we get back to remote work, but or if it's a safe environment, or, you know, I don't know what the details are around this, but that's a big consideration, and it's both mental health and physical health. And the mental health is so much more on the agenda these days. It was never spoken about before, but Gen Z there's less stigma, and I see Swedish companies, they have lots of things that they're doing. They use something called Mentimeter, which is that they measure people's happiness. There is another one, I think it's called Winning Tape. And they've actually used it in factories in Mexico. And when they leave the plant every day, they press a meter, just like you do at the airport. Are you happy? I think it's not exactly the green, yellow, and red person, but so they try to catch if somebody is not feeling well and see what they can do. There are also something called Mindler apps, which is dogs and a gardener. Sorry about that. Someone wants to take over?
Yeah, Marie, I'm wondering for you in the Middle East, I would imagine that it's a different perspective from the employees on discussing mental health issues, sharing that with an employer, sharing that with a destination services provider. Could you elaborate on what you're seeing or hearing over there?
Yeah, I think, look, definitely with the younger generation, similar to what Lena says, you know, they want flexibility. They want to be heard. They want to be respected. You know, I saw Steve's comment there and I started laughing. It's definitely not, they're definitely not for our industry. They don't want to work long hours, and they want to work 9 to 5, and that's it. They don't want to answer their phone in the evening. They don't want to answer or look at their phone at the weekends. And I personally think it's a problem. And I think the future, I worry about the future when this is the work ethic coming through. And it just seems to be like it's all about me, 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 me. And the employer doesn't really have a word to say anymore. And it's like we need to be flexible to suit employees and this generation that's coming along. So I think, Lena, we would have a great discussion together. We'd be like polar opposites, I think, in our opinions.
But I think it's the result of demographics.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's the region I'm in, and yeah, it's the mentality is just different in the Middle East than it is in Europe or the US. So, yeah, I think maybe from being outside of Ireland 21 years and 16 years in Dubai, I have a different mindset now.
Elena, did you want to add anything from your interruption before?
No, not really. Sorry about that. No, I think that companies are doing a great deal to cater to people's mental health. And there are a variety of reasons. One is productivity, it's, of course, but it's also in many countries in Europe, it's actually the employer's responsibility. It's a legal responsibility. And this is also why there are so many great ways of helping people who may not feel very well. And that's why I was talking about how good it is with remote work, because you get a lot more sleep, which is a huge benefit for mental health. But that was all.
Excellent. Alan, do you have anything to add to that topic?
I suppose I look at it from a slightly different perspective, and I agree with, what both the ladies were saying. If I look at it from a broader perspective in terms of ESG type initiatives, people want to work for organizations that have a purpose, and that purpose needs to be clear to them, and it needs to be transparent, and it needs to be something that they've bought into. And, organizations with purpose tend to attract people more, they retain people longer, and they feel as though they have some broader contribution to society, whether that's the wellness of their individuals, climate, whatever that purpose may be for that particular organization. I think that there's tons of initiatives that are happening with, mental health, and it's great that that's been recognized in the workplace, the importance of it. But I think how much people want to work is shifting. As Marie was saying, people don't go into an organization anymore with the kind of job for life attitude, where they're wanting to work 100 hours a week. There's certain sectors like mine where you are going to work 100 hours a week, but also because I love my job and I want to work beyond 40 hours a week because I find it personally fulfilling. But not everyone's in that space where they want to do that. And so, again, there's not that one size fits all in terms of what people are looking for. But I think as an industry, if we can express what our purpose is, what our values are, and how we contribute to those broader initiatives, it would make our industry more appealing for potential people wanting to get involved in what I think is one of the most fascinating work sectors that's out there in the kind of HR space. So I think we need to do better at explaining our purpose and how we help and add value.
Thank you, Alan. That's really insightful. On that same topic, I'm wondering, as we're trying to attract talent and especially younger people into this relocation space, are you feeling a responsibility to show your dedication to societal impact, to the environment, to sustainability, to diversity? And if you are, what are you doing internally? What are your initiatives, both to better your organization, improve the world, and attract talent? Lena, I'll throw that to you.
Thank you. Well, we are a very holistic company, I would say, and we foster togetherness, we foster good customer service, and in a way that is societal, and that is environmental, and that is inclusive to treat all of our clients like VIP. But we also obviously do things outside the office, and we do through our work, we actually send out surveys after every single case that we have completed. And with that, for every survey we get back, and we get back a lot of surveys, which is great because we all know that's not so easy. But the cliffhanger there is the reason we get back so many services or surveys is because we tell them we will donate money. to Save the Children, to the Children's Cancer Fund, and UNHCR. And usually we add something towards the end of the year. If it's been a good year, then we give more. And that works really well. And it's a win-win because we get to know what our clients think of us. Can we improve something? We have, since a number of years, an amazing team. We get 98% satisfaction rates, which is not only nice, but it also shows that usually people like to complain. So you can usually get those kinds of surveys back easier, which is good for the amount of money that we can give at the end of the year. But they really want to show appreciation. And I think that's one of the things that we co-create together with our clients, and it's worked really well. And it's obviously, we have an excellent managing director, Johanna, and also good director of operations. So it's a very tight thing. We're also all women, which is supposedly diverse. I don't know how that is, but, and yeah, no, we do work with that, and we have some projects on the side that we work on all the time.
That's fantastic. Well done. Marie, how about for you?
Yeah, well, firstly, I really like that initiative, Lena, about the surveys. As you say, it's a win-win for everyone. It would be great to see an increase in returns and then helping as well the environment with that. So that's something that I have noted down and will be looking into. Sustainability for us this year is we have 5 strategic initiatives, and one of them is solely sustainability. So we realize that we haven't been doing enough. We've started our journey. We're getting our EcoVadis certification. We've spoken to a lot of people. We have a few ideas for the year. We want to implement more. It's quite difficult, you know, in a region that we're in where sustainability, I suppose, is not top priority, especially in a city like Dubai. But we want to do our part, and we want to stand out in our region as being one of the DSPs that is doing more and as much as we can possibly do. So yeah, it's definitely a journey that we've started, but a lot more to do. And then on the diversity side, I suppose, well, similar to Lena, we're a woman-owned business. Our board is 80% women, so we probably need to diversify on the men's side more. But, you know, in our region, it's great to be a woman-owned business and run, especially expanding into Saudi now. You know, the company that's just established our entity has said it's the first company they've seen to have a woman as their general manager. So that's, you know, great for us to be one of the first women-led and owned business to be operating in Saudi in our area. So yeah, no, very excited about this area, but we want to continue doing what we're doing and doing more.
Well done. That's really impressive. Thank you, Marie. And Ellen, from your perspective.
Yeah, I think, you know, not only is it the right thing for companies to do, but our clients are actually demanding it off us now, where we have to actually do quantitative reporting on diversity and ESG type initiatives throughout the whole of the supply chain. And so, you know, they want to know how much you're spending in those areas, how much of your subcontractor spend is gone to diversified industries, how much are you contributing towards ESG factors. And so we are having to find ways in which to measure that. And I think it's going to be a tough one for some of us, because it's how do you actually go about measuring some of this stuff? You know, maybe in the shipping industry, it's a little bit easier, right? Can I use electric vehicles? Can I use, you know, recycled cardboard in the moving boxes? You know, in destination services, it's how do I really start to measure some of that stuff if I'm doing a city tour, or, you know, if I'm trying to find housing, you know, do I need to put them into more energy efficient places like James mentioned on the chat. So I think we've got a long way to go to try to figure out what are some of the metrics that we could really do and show to clients. I think we can all make individual small steps, and I think we can all reduce our water usage and other areas there. But as an industry, the big steps that we could take, I think we're still working through that. And I know that Worldwide Employee Relocation Council, they've pulled together a sustainability committee who are reviewing this area and going to issue a report on measures that could be taken within our industry. And I think that's going to be some really interesting reading about how we as a set of organizations can collaborate better to be able to come up with the right ideas.
Thank you very much. And I think you've also addressed James's question, so appreciate that. And I know we want to be mindful of time, but I'd love to just go around and ask each of you what's next. What can we expect in the wonderful world of relocation? Lena, would you like to?
That's a hard question, Brenda.
That's a hard question. I think relocation people want to explore the world. People want to meet other people. You want to be in diverse teams. It's the creation of everything is in the meeting of humans and seeing new things. And I don't think, while I am an advocate of remote work, I also don't think that people want to work remotely for a company in a different country. They also want to go there, meet the people, understand the market for which they're presumably producing something for, and get to know somebody, other people, other culture, other smells, climate, language. It will never go out of style. It's just the way humans are geared.
Excellent, thank you. Marie, what are your predictions?
Well, if I had that crystal ball, I think we all probably need it after the last few years of COVID and a war, and yeah, who knows what's next. But I definitely agree with Lena. You know, there are so many opportunities in the world, both for corporates and individuals, assignees. People want to, they want to move around. They want to avail of these opportunities. They want to see the world. They want to work with different cultures. So I don't see relocation going anywhere. I see a bright future, and I think COVID has probably woken us up to that, and people, want to move even more since COVID, and have these opportunities. And with remote working as well, it's a positive thing that people can move and work remotely from another location. They can go and live somewhere for lifestyle purposes and work remotely if their industry or company allows that. So yeah, I see a very positive and bright future ahead.
Glad to hear that. I think we're all glad to hear that. Alan, do you have some closing thoughts for us?
If I knew what was next, as Marie was saying, if we all had the crystal ball, we're all in the client service business. We are all here to look after our clients, and I think we're passionate about that, right? That's why we stay involved in this sector, because we want to take care of our clients. And for me, I think what's next is recognizing some of the challenges that our clients are really facing, the areas of how much they're being asked to do without some of the reskilling or more headcount or other areas that they're under, and how we best support what they're actually going through as clients. And I guess I'm talking more about the corporate level rather than the individual relocating employee who is continuing to, want to go out and see the world, but expectations are changing. And so what's next for me is how we deliver great client service in a constantly changing environment. We're very good at it. We pivot a lot, and I think we're going to keep pivoting in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alan. Susan, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Brenda. And first, a huge thank you to Lena, Marie, Alan. You are all smart, savvy entrepreneurs, and your perspectives were very much appreciated. I hope when I want to thank on behalf of TIRA and my co-host Brenda Levis that our attendees found this useful, and that you could take the learnings and the insights back to your own organization. Like all of you said, this is industry as we think about a tapestry or a mosaic. our ability to collaborate, to communicate, to clarify is, and accepting the importance of agility, of listening to the end user of our services is paramount. We are at the top of the hour. We wish everyone a great day, and thank you all for attending.